Islam hates truth like the devil hates holy water. Few days ago, Dr. Abdul Wahid of Hizbut Tahrir was exposed in front of the world as a terrorist sympathizer and being in stubborn denial about what happened on 7/10. As the interview went on, we understood he knew very well what happened on 7th of October, and he was just deceiving people, something again to be expected from the followers of the Islamist cult that exalts lying in the cause of Allah.
Do you think what happened on October the 7th was a terror attack?
It's a
Did
resistance.
you say no?
It's a resistance.
Not a terror attack.
Piers, if, and it's
You're
if.
NHS GP.
If, I'm asking you to let me finish. If, right, our Islamic standard in conflict, in warfare, our Prophet, peace be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, you can't kill children, you can't kill women, you can't kill the elderly, you can't mutilate.
Hamas did all that.
If anybody did that,
If, what do you mean if?
I say if because...
They literally broadcast it on their own streaming platforms.
And well, I'll tell you what a lot of us saw.
Hamas broadcast it merrily to the world. And here's us doing these terrible things.
And
what do you mean if?
What many of us saw on that day were videos coming out showing people saying, we will not harm women, we will not harm children.
Do me a favour.
No, that's what...
Doctor,
I live in.
You literally read me a description of what people who follow Islam are not supposed to do.
Yeah.
And Hamas did all of those things. But your response is to say, well, hang on, I've seen videos of them saying, we don't want to do that stuff.
No, yes.
I find that pretty offensive, Doctor.
We
all know they did it because they boasted to the world with their own videos what they were doing.
I find it amazing that respected journalists like yourself have seemed to have suspended their critical faculties.
No, I'm believing what Hamas wanted me to see.
Well, you're believing what you saw.
What Hamas themselves broadcast to the world because they wanted to take great glee in what they'd done.
They did it with glee. They were deeply proud. You see people taking the head off a young Israeli man with a shovel and then calling their parents back in Gaza and telling them, Father, I've killed 10 Jews with my own hands. Get mother on the phone. I want to tell her how great a job her son has done. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Even the Nazis were actually ashamed of what they did. They tried to cover their crimes up. Hamas are actually proud of them. They did it with glee.
There's no ambiguity about it.
I asked you to let me finish, and I'm going to...
You've got to answer questions.
I will answer the question. Let's agree on a principle. If atrocities were committed, right, I will never condone them, right? I will say that.
So do you condemn what happened on October the 7th?
If atrocities are committed, you know who's
responsible? What do you mean if? They were.
Who's responsible for it then?
In the aftermath of this interview, Islamists, again, in their usual tactic, instead of owning up to their terrorist sympathizing and deceptive ways, they tried to diverge attention from the essence of this interview and engage in a smear campaign to paint Piers Morgan as an Islamophobe in a type of cancel culture, boycotting his YouTube channel. You see, Islam hates free speech like vampires hate garlic.
I don't get the boycott. Why would you want to stop people watching a show that has so many voices giving your side of this story?
Is our segment going to be as courteous as the one you just did with Mark Regev?
Which Dilly brought up is your clarification is nothing. And even here, you're not willing to apologize for your comments. And your clarification in terms of the context, you said it in the context of what you think was horrible that somebody else said. Even if what the doctor, Abdul Wahid, said, let's just say for the sake of argument, it was terrible. That doesn't justify your statements, your Islamophobic, trope-like statements that you said about Sharia law and about women.
In the current Palestinian crisis, we know two things about Islamists. First of all, they are terrorist sympathizers, point blank. Their capacity to make apologetics for terrorists is staggering, guys. There is no limit. Terrorists might bound together a family and burn them alive, and they will still make apologetics for these terrorists. Secondly, they are in a stubborn denial to accept uncomfortable truth, and that is an understatement. More like they are in a psychotic mental institute type of denial to accept truth in front of their eyes. They say something on Twitter, guys, people post the videos in front of their eyes, and they still deny it in front of their eyes. Okay. So, is it therefore fair to assume radical Islam is susceptible to terrorism? Of course it is. Okay. This Palestine crisis exposed the only pending question about Islam, which was, does Islam support terrorism? And the answer is clear-cut, yes. And the other question is it therefore fair to assume Islamic scriptures are unreliable, given Islamists have a psychotic denial of truth and zero self-reflect and objectivity? Not to mention irredeemably liars and deceivers. And the answer is we cannot trust anything from these people. That the Hadith is preserved, bullshit. The Quran, nothing. Because you demonstrate the type of cultist you are. You are cultists with no regard for truth, no objectivity, no self-reflect. You are irredeemable liars.
They were killed.
Right,
They
by
were
terrorists.
Killed. They were killed by people who were resisting an occupation.
Bullshit.
And
they're terrorists.
yeah, well, that's your view.
It's so
okay, so
outrageous.
you censor. That's your
No,
answer.
no.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
censor. The person doing the censoring
No.
is you.
No,
with
you are
respect,
censoring.
Who wants me to
You are
try
censoring.
and understand and believe that what Hamas showed us, boasted about, with their own technology, broadcasting it to the world, was not what we saw. That's called censorship.
Well,
that is actually the purest personification
I tell you
of
what,
censoring the truth I've ever encountered.
When you're telling the answer.
Let's do a little
You're
quick fire
telling the
recap.
answer.
Do you think Hamas are a terror group?
I believe it's a resistance
Okay.
organisation.
Do you think what they did on October the 7th was a terror attack?
I believe that if civilians got killed on that day, it is appalling. It is appalling.
You're a doctor, man.
It is appalling.
You're a doctor in
I
the
also
NHS.
believe-
What do you
I
mean
also
if?
believe-
1,200 people got massacred.
And
So Abdul Wahid in this interview undeniably exposed himself to be 1. a terrorist sympathizer, 2. in denial, and 3. a liar. In the aftermath of this interview, Islamists tried to censor this truth with a smear campaign accusing Piers Morgan for Islamophobia in their usual tactics.
Was what happened on October the 7th a terror attack? Was it?
I believe it to be a military offensive by various factions of Palestinian groups, not just Hamas, and many of them are not even banned under UK law.
Was it a terrorist attack?
Pardon?
Was it a terrorist attack?
Have you come to an agreement about what it means to be a terrorist?
I've got the full rundown of what terrorism is, as I had at the time.
But you didn't.
No, I had it. I wanted to know what the doctor's interpretation of
I'm
it
not the
was.
doctor.
What's your interpretation of terrorism?
Terrorism
Yeah.
is an act of violence targeting children and civilians to advance the political...
Correct. Is that what Hamas did on October the 7th?
Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
I'm asking you.
I don't believe it was an act of terrorism. No.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Even though they literally did what you just articulated as a definition of terrorism.
Do you have proof that they targeted women and children and civilians
Yes.
specifically? What's the proof?
I'll tell you the proof.
What's the proof?
You what?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
Oh, you don't think it happened?
Oh, the GoPro videos.
So also, like the doctor, you deny...
No.
You
I've
deny
seen the videos.
you
I'm a
deny it
journalist.
happened.
I've authenticated the videos.
Right.
I've seen the videos.
Right.
But show me the proof that women and children were specifically targeted as opposed to...
They were literally burned alive in homes.
Okay, where's the proof?
People were beheaded.
Proof.
Babies were killed.
Name me one child. One child was beheaded. Name me one child that was beheaded. And I will mourn and condemn with you.
I just said people
Name me
were
one
beheaded.
child.
I didn't...
By the way, children were beheaded. I saw the picture. you shameless buffoon. And children were burned. I don't know whether they were burnt alive or not. In fact, they were burnt alive. We have evidence of a father with a child bound together and lit in fire alive. We have this evidence, and I've seen it. Just because I cannot post it on YouTube, because it will take my video down, that doesn't mean we haven't seen it, you idiot. Okay? We've seen the evidence.
Say a child.
No primary source
right?
objective.
No. So just to be clear,
No primary source
just to be
evidence.
clear,
You shameless buffoon. You repeat the nonsense Mohammed Hijab said. No primary source. No primary source evidence. Videos and photographs are primary source. You idiot. Witnesses are primary source. You... Anyway, let's continue.
like the doctor, you do not believe that anyone was beheaded, that children were killed. Let me clarify where I'm wrong here. Were these things happening?
Israeli civilians were killed.
How many?
I don't know. Mark Regev doesn't even know. We need to first establish.
No, they do know.
How many?
We know at least 1,200 people,
Israeli
including
citizens?
around 400 soldiers. So we're assuming 800 civilians were killed, and we know at least
How many of them were killed by
at
Israel?
least another 200 odd civilians were taken hostage.
How many
Right?
of them were killed by Israel? For that
How many do you
direct
think?
him? A lot higher
No,
than a
it's
lot
not.
higher. Yes, it is.
There's no evidence of that.
Of course it is.
No, it's not.
Just look at the Nova. Just look at the Nova Music Festival and look at the burnt out cars.
You see,
Hamas doesn't even have
see,
the
this is the
firepower
problem,
to
isn't
do
it?
that.
The real reason you want me boycotted is I'm telling the truth, and what you're doing is trying to convince viewers, and maybe your Muslim fan base, I don't know, you're trying to convince them that what we saw through the eyes of Hamas's own technology, where they gloated and boasted about what they'd done, didn't happen.
No, what
and you want me to
no,
think,
not at
and you want me to think that even though you
Not at all.
articulated, hang on, you articulated a description of terrorism and then said that didn't apply to October the 7th, even though that's exactly what happened. You see, I would say that's delusional. I would say it's deliberately misleading, as was the attempt to try and make me apologise to Muslim women for apparently
course,
calling
you
them
stand by that
oppressed,
comment.
which I didn't do.
And you stand by that comment.
Which I didn't. Yes,
You couldn't care less about the offence caused to 1 billion Muslim women
Yeah, but
or 1.8
I've
billion
explained to
Muslims
you-
about talking about jihad and
No,
Sharia,
no.
the sacred law of Muslims.
There was a deliberate attempt to misquote me out of context to try and make out that it's the way you interpreted it.
Even if what the doctor Abdul Wahid said, let's just say for the sake of argument, it was terrible, that doesn't justify your statements, your Islamophobic trope-like statements that you said about Sharia law and about women.
Jake will claim that Islam doesn't oppress women. Isn't that right, Jake? Yet he appears in podcast with his dear friend Daniel Hakikatsu, who he shares the same views about women. Let's see what are those.
Woman, what is education? And whether it's important for a Muslim woman to be educated or not.
You know what? I don't believe in women's education. She kind of looked shocked back at me, stunned like I was from a different planet. Many of you watching this are probably just as confused as my wife was that night. But after I explained to her exactly why I don't believe in women's education and my Islamic reasons for this, she came to fully agree with me. I hope the same will be the case with everyone listening today. My position in this debate is simple. Pursuing education empowers women, but Islam is against empowering women. I know this sounds shocking to some, but hear me out. What I mean by empowerment is increasing social status and power through education or career.
Jake, you are not Jake the Muslim metaphysician, you are the joke Muslim metaphysician. If you claim that Islam doesn't oppress women, and you have this kind of beliefs.
An emotional story, right?
You want to use this opportunity to apologise to 1 billion Muslim women?
No,
Why is that?
because it was completely misconstrued, so misleading.
So you don't want to apologise to those Muslim women who were offended?
No, I want to
mostly-
apologise to anybody. And I know that in somewhere like Afghanistan, the women who under Sharia law imposed by the Taliban are deeply oppressed. Would you agree with that?
What qualifications
Well,
do
hang
you have to
on.
even talk about
Would you
Sharia?
agree with that?
What qualifications
Would you agree
do
with
you
that?
have? What
Hang on.
qualifications do you have?
Let's try and reach points of agreement.
Yes.
Do you agree that the way the Taliban treats women is oppression?
I'm going to answer your question.
Can you answer it?
I will answer your question.
Well, answer it.
But I want to know why.
Well, don't answer supplementary first.
No, but
answer
why
my
did you-
question.
You said you know about Sharia law.
I've just asked you a specific
I just want to
question.
know what your credentials are.
I'm just
speak about this.
I'm just asking you about the situation in Afghanistan,
There are
where the
mis-
Taliban interpretation and implementation of Sharia law, in my opinion, and the opinion of most people outside of Afghanistan.
Who's most people?
Well, I'm about to ask you whether you agree with it.
most people?
Do you think the way women are treated in Afghanistan by the Taliban
There are aspects
is,
of there
is
are
oppression
aspects-
or not?
There are aspects of misapplication of Sharia
No
law.
education.
There's a
Why stuttering?
Please, we're going down that road again, aren't we?
Well, you tell me.
I've just said to you there are misapplication of Sharia law, not just in Afghanistan, across the breadth.
Is the
of
Taliban misapplying it?
I'm asking you, what is your expertise to
You
even comment
know,
on
sorry,
this?
it's my show. I do the question.
But you invited me.
I'm just asking you a question. You haven't answered it. Is the Taliban
There are-
implementing Sharia law accurately or not?
Not entirely and comprehensively. no.
Okay, so we can agree that there is oppression of women.
There is most certainly aspects to reform and
Right.
review in the education system of Afghanistan.
Would you say the way women are treated in Afghanistan right now by Taliban is oppressive?
I don't appreciate this line of questioning, Piers. I don't appreciate this line of questioning, Piers.
Are Taliban good or bad? Now, those of you that have the attention span of a goldfish, a conclusion is going to be, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Okay, but there's so many different variables at play here. It's very difficult to pin this down.
Dilly Hussain posted a tweet, and after being confronted by Israel advocacy movement, he then deleted. But I managed to retrieve this tweet.
Why do so many female IDF terrorists look like they're modeling for shoots instead of getting ready for battle? Are they all dolling up to get taken as Ghanima?
Britain has a problem. Ghanima means spoils of war. When ISIS enslaved girls in Syria, they described them as Ghanima and justified it with their interpretation of Islam. Here's a British journalist describing Israeli women with the same language.
Ghanima also includes prisoners of war. But you already knew that. Apartheid terrorist advocacy.
And I responded, are they doling up is for the prisoners of war?
If your tweet wasn't talking about taking Israeli women as sex slaves, why did you delete the tweet, Dilly Hussain? Unfortunately for you, the internet doesn't forget.